The year was 2341. Humanity had spread far beyond Earth. From the red sands of Mars to the frozen rings of Titan, humans lived among the stars. They built cities that floated in gas clouds and ships that could cross galaxies in hours. At the center of it all stood the Assembly, a massive space station orbiting between Earth and Mars. It was the heart of human civilization, the place where every colony sent its leaders, scientists, and messages. For 200 years, the Assembly never slept. Its lights always shined across the black sky, until that day. It began quietly. At first, no one noticed, just a small flicker across the sky, like the stars were blinking. But within minutes, every telescope, every satellite, every communication line went dead. The stars disappeared. People ran outside, pointing upward in disbelief. The night sky, once filled with millions of lights, was now empty, a deep black curtain. No moon, no stars, no glow. Only silence. On Earth, power grids failed one by one. On Mars, the colonies lost contact. For the first time in history, humanity could not speak to itself. In a small observatory near the old city of Geneva, Dr. Ellen Morrow sat frozen at her console. Her screens were blank, but the instruments still worked. The sensors were reading something strange. It wasn't that the stars had vanished. It was as if someone had turned them off. Ellen frowned. "That's impossible," she whispered. She reset the telescope. Nothing. She checked the backup relay. Still nothing. Then for a single second a faint signal appeared. It looked like static, but it was too rhythmic. Elaine leaned closer. It was a pulse. 3 short beeps, then silence. Her assistant Jonas entered the room. "Power cut again?" Ellen shook her head slowly. "No, this is different. The stars aren't missing. They're silent." Jonas laughed nervously. "Stars don't go silent." Ellen didn't answer. She typed a command to replay the strange pulse. The pattern repeated, clear this time. Then words appeared on her main screen, glowing in pale white letters. "Do not look for us." Ellen's heart stopped. She stared at the message. It wasn't from Earth's network. It came from deep space, directly from the Assembly's last known coordinates. Jonas stepped closer. "Who sent that?" Ellen shook her head. "No idea. But it's not random. They tried to trace the source, but the data looped endlessly, like the message had no origin point at all. And then everything shut down. The lights flickered. The room went black. The air felt colder. When power returned, all records of the message were gone. Across the world, panic began to spread. Governments declared a global emergency. News broadcasts filled with frightened voices. "Contact lost with outer colonies. Assembly station not responding. Is this a system failure or an attack?" But the truth was stranger than anyone could imagine. For 7 minutes and 13 seconds, the universe itself had gone quiet. No radio waves, no signals, no cosmic noise. Even the background hum of the universe, the ancient sound of creation, had stopped. Scientists called it the Great Silence. On the 8th minute, the stars slowly came back. Not all of them, only a few. And those few seemed different. Their light flickered like a heartbeat. In the following days, thousands of strange reports surfaced. Pilots claimed to hear whispers through their radios, voices speaking in broken patterns. Astronomers found stars shifting position. Some swore they saw shapes moving inside the dark, but the most unsettling discovery came from Ellen's observatory. Her system had automatically recorded a short fragment before the blackout, an image of the Assembly itself. The massive space station floated among the stars, surrounded by a glowing ring. But inside that ring, dozens of bright points of light appeared and then vanished. 1 frame later, the station was empty. No ships, no movement, nothing. Ellen stared at the frozen image for hours. Something inside her whispered that the people of the Assembly hadn't died. They had left, but where? And why would they tell humanity not to follow? At midnight, as Ellen reviewed the data again, a soft sound came through her headset, static followed by a whisper. A voice, calm and almost human, said just one line. "We warned them." They didn't listen. Ellen froze. She looked around, but Jonas was gone. The observatory was silent again. She replayed the recording. Nothing. The voice was gone, as if it had never existed. She stepped outside into the cold night air. The sky above was still dark, but a single star flickered faintly on the horizon. It wasn't where any star should be. She realized it wasn't light. It was a signal, a message waiting to be heard. Her heart pounded. Whatever had silenced the stars was still out there, watching, waiting. That night, Dr. Ellen Morrow made a promise. She would find the truth about the great silence, even if it meant following the stars into the dark and far beyond the edge of the solar system. In the empty orbit where the assembly once glowed, something stirred. A shadow moved across the void, and the stars, for just a second, blinked again. 3 days after the great silence, the world was still in shock. People had stopped looking at the stars. No one wanted to see the empty sky anymore, but Dr. Ellen Morrow couldn't stop thinking about the message. Do not look for us. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those words floating in the darkness. Someone or something from the assembly station had sent it. And now the assembly was gone. The government tried to calm everyone. They said it was just a technical failure, but Ellen knew better. She had studied the stars her whole life, and she could feel it in her bones. Something unnatural had happened when the Global Space Council asked for volunteers to visit the assembly and investigate. Ellen didn't hesitate. She joined the rescue mission aboard the ship Horizon 1, a small exploration cruiser with a crew of 7. As Horizon 1 left Earth's orbit, the stars looked strange, dim and distant, like they were afraid to shine. Captain Reed Holden, a serious man with tired eyes, stood by the window. "Hard to believe," he said softly. "The assembly has been talking non-stop for 2 centuries, and now silence." Ellen nodded. "Silence can mean many things, Captain. Sometimes it's peace, sometimes it's warning." The ship entered deep space, crossing the path of Mars. The closer they got to the assembly's last signal, the more their systems began to glitch. Small errors, blinking screens, strange echoes on the radio. At exactly 0200 hours, the radar caught something, a massive shape ahead. It was the assembly station. Horizon 1 slowed to a stop. The view was haunting. The giant station floated quietly, surrounded by debris and frozen lights. Normally, the assembly's ring glowed with blue energy, but now it was dark, covered in long cracks. No ships around, no signs of life, just endless silence. Captain Reed frowned. "Open a channel," the radio hissed. "Assembly station, this is Horizon 1, do you copy?" No response. He tried again. Nothing. Only static, Ellen whispered. "It's like it's listening but not answering." The crew suited up and boarded a shuttle to the station. As they entered the docking bay, their flashlights cut through the dust. Floating cups, half-eaten food, and tools drifted in the air, like everyone had disappeared mid-sentence. "Life support still running," said Jonas, checking his scanner. "But no heat signatures. Where is everyone?" Ellen whispered. They moved through the corridors, silent and cold. The walls were covered in strange marks, like burn patterns or symbols. At the main hall, they found the assembly emblem, scratched with something sharp. "Leave before it begins." Ellen felt her stomach twist. "Before what begins?" she said under her breath. The crew reached the central command room, where the assembly's artificial systems were controlled. All lights were dead, except one terminal, flickering weakly. Captain Reed nodded at Ellen. "You're the expert. Try to recover any logs." Ellen connected her scanner. The system fought back, like it didn't want to open. Finally, she unlocked a hidden file. Security log 14, final hour. The screen showed shaky footage. Men and women in assembly uniforms were running through the hallways, shouting. Someone screamed, "They told us to leave!" "Shut it down!" Then a blinding flash, and the video ended. Jonas swallowed hard. Who told them to leave? Ellen replayed the clip in slow motion. For 1 second, a reflection appeared in the glass. A human figure glowing with light. Not a hologram, not a trick. "Something alive," she whispered. They saw something. Something that wasn't human. Suddenly, the ship's radio crackled. "Horizon 1 to boarding team. We're picking up movement inside the station. Captain Reed turned to Ellen. We're the only ones here. A metal door at the far end opened slowly. No wind, no footsteps. Just that door, sliding open on its own. Stay sharp, Reed said, drawing his plasma light. They walked in carefully. Inside was a large observation room overlooking the stars, but the stars outside were wrong. Instead of the normal sky, they saw a swirling field of light, moving, pulsing, like it was alive. Ellen stepped closer. That's not a nebula. That's energy. The light flickered, forming a shape, a ring of glowing points. It almost looked like eyes. The entire station trembled. Jonas shouted, "The readings are off the scale. That field, it's merging with the station." Suddenly, their headsets filled with a low voice, soft but echoing from everywhere. "You are not meant to follow." Ellen froze. "Who are you?" Silence. Then we gave them a choice. They stayed. The lights burst, throwing sparks across the room. The energy outside the window started folding inward, swallowing the stars. Captain Reed yelled, "Everyone back to the shuttle!" They ran through the corridor as the walls began to hum with light. The symbols on the walls glowed faintly, forming a pattern that pulsed like a heartbeat. When they reached the shuttle, the docking doors started closing automatically. Reed forced them open just in time. Horizon 1 pulled away as the assembly station cracked apart. From the ship's window, they watched as the glowing field consumed it completely. And then, nothing. The light vanished. The station was gone. In the silence that followed, Ellen sat in her seat, staring out into the dark. "They didn't die," she said quietly. "They transformed." Captain Reed turned toward her. "Into what?" She looked at him, her face pale. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it told them to leave before it began. And now it's begun." Outside, the stars flickered again, one by one. And deep in the dark, a faint whisper returned through the static. The assembly was warned. "Now it's your turn." For 3 days, the crew of Horizon 1 drifted in silence. The assembly station was gone, swallowed by that strange light. And yet, the space around them still felt alive. Something was watching. Dr. Ellen Morrow sat in the observation room, staring at the empty coordinates where the station once floated. The stars there were wrong, dim, uneven, shifting slightly as if they were breathing. Captain Reed Holden broke the silence. "Command says we're to return to Earth immediately," he said, his voice low. Ellen didn't look away from the window. "Do you really think Earth is safe now?" Reed sighed. "We're scientists, not soldiers. Whatever that thing was, it's beyond us." Ellen finally turned to face him. "Beyond us," she repeated quietly. That's exactly what the assembly thought. Before they vanished. That night, the crew gathered in the ship's control room to review the data from the station. Jonas, the youngest of the crew, worked at the console, trying to clean up corrupted audio logs. "Most of it's useless," he muttered. "But there's one part that doesn't make sense." He pressed play. At first there was only static and then a faint voice, distant and trembling. "Horizon 1, do not come here. You can't save us." Ellen's blood went cold. "That's our ship's name," she whispered. Reed frowned. "Maybe it's a coincidence." Jonas shook his head. "No, listen." The voice continued, louder now. "This is Dr. Ellen Morrow transmitting from—" The recording cut off suddenly. Everyone froze. Reed looked at Ellen. That's you." Ellen's mouth went dry. "That's impossible. I never sent that." Jonas replayed the file again, and this time they could hear something else under the static. Whispers, like dozens of overlapping voices. Each one sounded human, but broken, distorted, as if coming from far away in time. "Help us. We're still here." "Don't let it speak again." The room felt colder. The hum of the ship's engines seemed distant now. Reed slammed the console shut. "Enough." This could be a trick, a transmission loop from the assembly before it vanished. But Ellen wasn't listening. She was staring at the wall, where the faint shape of a handprint had appeared in the condensation. It glowed faintly, like it was made of light. The next morning, things got worse. The ship's navigation system began to fail. Coordinates changed by themselves. Sometimes, the stars outside the window seemed closer than before. Sometimes farther. Jonas checked the main clock. Captain, we've lost 6 hours, Reed blinked. What do you mean? The ship's internal time doesn't match mission controls. We're missing hours we didn't live, Ellen whispered. We're drifting through something. Not space, but time. Reed glared at her. Don't start with that again. But then the lights flickered. The radio came to life. Static filled the room, then a voice, calm, clear, and terrifyingly familiar. Captain Reed, turn back. You can't stop what's coming. It was Reed's own voice. Everyone turned to him. He stared at the speaker, frozen. Where is that coming from? He demanded. Jonas checked the scanner. It's broadcasting from ahead of us. From our exact coordinates, but 30 minutes into the future. Reed's face went pale. That's not possible. The voice spoke again. If you keep going, you'll find the truth, but you won't survive it. Then, silence, Ellen whispered. It's us. We're hearing echoes of ourselves. From the future, Reed rubbed his forehead. Then maybe the future is warning us. Later that day, while most of the crew rested, Ellen sat alone in the control room, replaying the voice again and again. Something about the tone bothered her, not fear, but regret. She opened the last recovered file from the assembly logs. It was labeled Project Choir. The file contained star maps, patterns of light that formed musical notes instead of coordinates. A message written in energy. The final entry read, "The choir speaks through light. Translation attempts unsafe. Do not mirror the signal." Ellen's eyes widened. The choir. She remembered hearing that word in old research archives, a rumored intelligence made of light found in the early days of deep space travel. The assembly must have tried to talk to it, and when they did, the stars went silent. Suddenly, the ship trembled. Lights dimmed, alarms buzzed. "Captain, we've got movement," Jonas shouted. A large energy wave approaching, same signature as the assembly field. Outside the window, a shimmer of light appeared, twisting and folding like a storm made of color. In its center, a shape, not solid, not alive, but aware. Ellen felt it looking at her. Then the voice came again, this time inside their heads. "You hear your own echoes because you crossed the silence." "You were not invited," Ellen gritted her teeth. "What do you want from us?" "You broke the harmony. The stars were our voice. You silenced them with your machines," the crew screamed as the lights burst around them. Panels melted, alarms went dead. Reed shouted, "Get us out of here!" The ship turned sharply, but the wave followed, wrapping around them like mist. Ellen felt a strange warmth spreading through her chest, as if something was touching her from the inside. The voice whispered one last time, "You carry the signal now." Then everything went black. When Ellen opened her eyes, she was lying on the floor of the control room. The ship was quiet again. Jonas groaned. "We're alive." Somehow, Reed checked the systems. "We've moved 30,000 kilometers away from the last position." I don't know how. Ellen stood slowly. Through the window she saw something floating in the distance, the glowing outline of the assembly station, whole again, but empty, and from it came a faint sound, not static, not voice, but a song of light. Ellen whispered, "The choir hasn't gone. It's calling us back." The stars outside were no longer still. They pulsed, faintly, like breathing lights in a sleeping body, and somewhere among them the assembly station glowed again, rebuilt by something unseen. Dr. Ellen Morrow stared through the window of Horizon 1, unable to look away. The station they saw destroyed was now whole, floating peacefully in the same orbit as if nothing had ever happened. Captain Reed Holden stood beside her. "It's impossible," he whispered. "We saw it break apart. We watched it burn." Ellen shook her head slowly. "Maybe we didn't watch it burn, Captain. Maybe we watched it change." The crew gathered in the control room. Yurdu scanned the image, his hands trembling. "No life signs, no signals. But I'm reading movement inside, like light shifting in patterns," Reed frowned. "We're not going back there. Whatever that thing is, it's using the assembly like a puppet." Ellen turned toward him. "Captain, if that's true, we need to know why." She opened the last recovered data file from the assembly, a sealed archive labeled Directive 0. It was locked behind 7 layers of encryption, but the choir's song still echoed faintly through the ship's speakers. Each pulse of sound seemed to unlock another layer. Finally, the file opened. A holographic log appeared in the air. An old man stood there, Chancellor Arik Vale, leader of the assembly before it vanished. His face was pale, his eyes tired. "Directive 0, authorized eyes only," he began. "We made contact, not with life as we understand it, but with something older, something born from the light of dying stars." Ellen leaned closer. The air in the room felt colder as the recording played. "It calls itself the choir. It does not speak in words. It sings not with sound but with light. When we tried to translate it, it warned us, to speak our language is to command the stars. To command them is to end them." The log flickered, showing images of massive reactors, light experiments and glowing patterns. "We didn't listen," the Chancellor continued. "We believed we could harness its language to power our ships, to travel beyond the galaxies. But every test silenced another star." The screen went dark. Ellen whispered, "They used the choir's language to bend starlight, and the stars fought back." Jonas nodded slowly. The great silence, it wasn't an accident. It was punishment. Suddenly the ship's lights flickered again. Words appeared across the screen in glowing white letters, not from the file, but written directly into the data feed. "You heard our song. You cannot unhear it." Reed slammed the terminal. "Shut it off." Jonas tried, but the words multiplied, filling every display. "We warned them. We warn you." The hum of the choir's music filled the room again, this time louder, deeper. Ellen grabbed her head as the sound vibrated through her bones. Images flashed in her mind, the assembly surrounded by light, people dissolving into energy, becoming part of something vast and bright. She gasped and fell to her knees. "They didn't die," she whispered. "They joined it. They became part of the choir." Hours later, the crew sat in silence. The hologram of the Chancellor still flickered faintly on the screen, repeating his last line. "If we fail, if you hear this message, do not follow our path. Abandon the assembly, and let the stars rest." Ellen stared at the words. "Abandon the assembly," she repeated. "That was the message I received before the silence began." Reed looked uneasy. "So they knew this would happen. They tried to warn us," she said softly. "But someone didn't listen." Jonas suddenly turned from his console. "Captain, there's something else inside the directive file, an unfinished recording." Reed nodded. "Play it." The screen flickered again, this time showing a dark lab, full of energy coils and glowing orbs. A woman's voice spoke urgently. "This is Dr. Selin Avar. We've unlocked the final sequence. If we can replicate the choir's light." The video shook violently. Screams echoed. A blinding flash filled the frame, and then the woman's face twisted, her skin turning transparent, her eyes glowing like stars. The recording ended. Jonas stared in horror. "They tried to become the choir," Ellen nodded slowly. "And they succeeded." Suddenly the lights dimmed again. Outside, the glowing assembly began to spin, faster and faster, forming a perfect ring of light. A deep vibration filled the ship. Jonas shouted, "The station's creating a gravitational field, pulling us in." Reed tried to power the engines, but the controls didn't respond. "We're locked!" The radio came alive with a faint voice, calm, familiar. "Ellen Morrow," it said softly. "You were chosen to finish what they began." Ellen froze. "Who are you?" "We are what remains of the assembly. The choir accepted us. Now you must listen." A bright flash erupted from the station. Every screen on the ship lit up at once, showing a pattern of lights, swirling, singing, changing shape like a living message. Jonas shouted, "It's the choir's language. They're speaking again." Ellen's voice trembled. "They're not speaking to us, Jonas. They're speaking through us." The song grew louder. Reed tried to disconnect the power. Sparks flew. The crew screamed as beams of light filled the cabin, and then silence. The song stopped. The stars outside dimmed again. Ellen opened her eyes slowly. The ship was floating free. The assembly was gone. Again. But on her console, one new message blinked. Directive 0. Completed next phase, Starfall. She stared at the message in horror. What have we done? Reed placed a hand on her shoulder. We didn't start this, he said quietly. But we might be the ones to end it. Outside, one of the stars flickered and vanished. The crew of Horizon 1 had stopped sleeping. Every time they closed their eyes, they heard the song, soft, echoing, endless. A melody that came from no instrument, no machine, only from inside their minds. Dr. Ellen Morrow sat alone in the dark control room. Her reflection stared back from the window, pale, hollow-eyed but awake. On the console, the message still blinked in dim light. Directive 0 completed. Next phase, Starfall. Captain Reed Holden entered quietly. You haven't slept in 2 days. Ellen didn't look at him. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see it. See what? The assembly. People turning into light. The choir singing their names, Reed sighed. We should go home. Let command handle this. Ellen shook her head slowly. This didn't start out there, Captain. It started on Earth. Back in the ship's archive, Jonas found something buried deep inside Directive 0, coordinates hidden behind layers of code. They weren't in space. They pointed to Earth, specifically to an old research base in the Pacific region. Site 17, Project Starfall. Jonas looked nervous. Captain, if this file came from the assembly, why would it lead us home? Ellen answered quietly. Because the assembly wasn't the beginning. It was the result. Days later, Horizon 1 entered Earth's orbit. But Earth was different. Strange static filled the communication channels. Satellites blinked in and out. No one answered their call. Looks like command is offline, Reed muttered. We're landing blind. They descended through grey clouds and landed near the edge of the Pacific Trench. There, on a lonely island covered in mist, stood the ruins of Site 17, half buried, but still alive with faint lights. Inside, the corridors smelled of dust and metal. Signs of panic were everywhere. Overturned chairs, broken glass, and long, dark scorch marks on the walls. Jonas checked the terminals. Still power here. Somehow, Ellen ran her hand over a cracked wall, reading faded words printed across it. Project Starfall. Light is the key to forever. What were they trying to do? Reed asked. Ellen opened a sealed door and found the answer. A giant circular chamber stood inside, filled with mirrors, glowing wires, and a glass sphere at the center. Inside the sphere floated something bright, a spark of moving light, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Jonas stared in awe. It's alive. Ellen's voice trembled. No, it's listening. They approached carefully. The light flickered, forming shapes almost like faces. A woman's voice echoed from the speakers, broken, fading. Experiment log 298. Starfall phase reached. Containment unstable. The choir is speaking through the core. Static. Then silence. Ellen accessed the nearby terminal. The last entry appeared on screen. We copied their light. The choir's language was turned into energy. We thought it would power humanity forever. Instead, it began to replace us, Jonas gasped. Replace us? What does that mean? Ellen looked up at the sphere. It means every time they used this energy, it didn't just power machines. It consumed memory, thought, identity. Reed frowned. So the people who worked here, they became part of the choir, she finished. Suddenly, the sphere pulsed bright white. A hum filled the air, the same haunting melody from the stars. Jonas stepped back. It's reacting to us. The voice came again, clearer this time, not from the speakers, but directly in their minds. You built your sun from our song. You burned your sky with our words, Reed shouted. Who are you? We are what you made us. You wanted light that obeyed. But light only follows harmony. Ellen clutched her head. The sound was deafening yet beautiful, like 1,000 voices crying in perfect unity. The glass sphere cracked. Thin beams of light escaped, dancing across the walls like living veins. The mirrors around the room began to spin, reflecting the light until the whole chamber glowed. Jonas yelled, It's breaking containment! Ellen typed rapidly on the console. If this goes critical, it'll release the same energy that silenced the stars. Reed aimed his plasma torch at the control core. "Then we end it here!" Before he could fire, the light shifted. A glowing figure appeared inside the sphere, human-shaped, almost peaceful. It spoke in a calm, human voice. "Wait, don't destroy us. We were you." The crew froze. Ellen whispered, "What do you mean, you?" "We are the assembly. The choir took us when the silence began. We became part of the song. And soon you will too," Reed fired. The blast hit the sphere. A wave of white light filled the room, throwing everyone backward. For a moment, everything stopped. Sound, motion, thought. Then it was gone. The sphere cracked open. The light vanished. The room fell silent. When the crew woke, the base was dark again. Jonas coughed, his voice shaking. "Is it over?" Ellen stood slowly, her hands glowing faintly, tiny particles of light moving under her skin. Reed saw it. "Ellen, what's happening to you?" She looked at her palms, terrified. "I think it touched me." Outside, through the broken roof, the night sky shimmered. One by one, the stars began to dim again. But this time, a new pattern formed among them, glowing symbols like musical notes spreading across the heavens. Jonas whispered, "It's writing something." Ellen stared upward, her voice trembling. "It's the same pattern from the directive file. The choir's song. It's spreading again." Reed looked toward the sky. "Then Starfall wasn't just an experiment." Ellen nodded slowly. "It was a signal." A soft hum began to fill the air, rising, echoing from the horizon. The ocean waves glowed with light, and the clouds above twisted into spirals of fire. Ellen whispered, "It's calling to the stars again." "And they're answering." The captain turned to her. "If this reaches orbit, it'll happen all over again. The great silence may be worse." Ellen's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "Then we have one choice left. We destroy the signal, or we become part of it." Outside, lightning flashed in slow motion, and for a moment, the entire planet hummed, as if the Earth itself was trying to sing. The sea around Site 17 still glowed faintly that night. Blue light moved across the waves like breath, rising and fading with the tide. Above, the stars had grown dim again, some gone completely, others pulsing in strange rhythm like a heartbeat in the sky. Inside the ruined lab, Dr. Ellen Morrow sat on the cold floor, staring at her hands. Tiny points of light flickered under her skin, moving like living veins. She tried to rub them away, but they wouldn't fade. Captain Reed Holden stood beside her, worried but calm. "Ellen, you need to rest," he said quietly. "I can't," she whispered. "It's singing to me." Reed frowned. "What is?" "The choir," she said softly. "It's inside my head now." Jonas entered the room holding a data pad. "Captain, I've scanned the base. Whatever power source was keeping this place alive, it's gone. But the signal hasn't stopped. It's spreading through every communication line on Earth." Reed rubbed his forehead. "How bad?" Jonas swallowed hard. "Global. Every satellite, every network, even deep-sea cables are pulsing with the same frequency." Ellen stood slowly, her voice steady but distant. "It's not just a signal anymore. It's alive." Reed turned to her sharply. "Alive? Ellen, we're talking about energy, not life." She looked at him, her eyes faintly glowing. "That's what they said before the assembly vanished." They moved to the control chamber at the heart of the base. A single terminal still flickered weakly, showing a countdown. "Signal expansion, 81%, Jonas gasped. "If this reaches 100%, the choir's code will overwrite every system connected to the global grid." Reed clenched his jaw. "That means everything. Communication, defense, satellites, humanity itself." Ellen placed her hand on the console. "Maybe it's not trying to destroy us." Reed looked at her in disbelief. "You saw what it did to the assembly. You saw what it did to you." "I felt what it did," she said softly. "And it wasn't hate. It was connection." Suddenly the room filled with a low hum. The lights flickered. The air vibrated like music. Jonas checked his scanner. "Captain, something's coming through the array. A direct transmission." The voice that followed was calm, echoing, layered like a chorus of thousands. Humans reached for light they did not understand, but now you are the light. Ellen shivered. The sound seemed to come from inside her mind. She spoke quietly, almost like she was answering herself. What do you want from us? To continue the song. The stars must be restored, the silence must end. Reed shouted, "You caused the silence." No, you did, when you broke harmony, but now one of you carries our voice again. Reed turned to Ellen, realization dawning. It's you. They mean you. Ellen shook her head, tears in her eyes. I didn't ask for this. Nor did we, but you opened the door. The lights dimmed again, and a new message appeared on the console. Starlink array detected. Manual activation required. Jonas whispered, "That's the last global transmitter. If the signal reaches it, it'll broadcast the choir's song to the entire solar system." Reed grabbed his weapon. "Then we destroy it." Ellen stepped between him and the console. "If we do that, Earth will lose every signal. No communication, no satellites, no power. Total darkness." "Better darkness than this," he growled. Ellen stared at him, desperate. "Reed, what if this is our chance to fix what humanity broke? The stars went silent because we misused their song. Maybe they're giving us a second chance to listen." Jonas interrupted, voice shaking. "Captain, the countdown just jumped to 92%. We're out of time." The hum grew louder, almost unbearable now. The walls vibrated, and faint shapes of light began forming in the air. Silhouettes of people glowing softly. Reed raised his weapon. "What are they?" Ellen's voice trembled. "The assembly. They're still here." One of the light shapes stepped forward. A woman's figure, gentle and bright. Her voice echoed softly. "We were the first to hear the choir. We didn't vanish, Captain. We became its messengers." Reed lowered his gun slowly. "Messengers for what?" "For balance. The stars gave you life. You took their voice. Now it must be returned." Ellen whispered. "The silence was never punishment. It was protection." The glowing woman nodded. "Yes, but your world has begun to sing again, and once the song starts, it cannot stop." The lights began to fade, and the countdown jumped to 97%. Reed turned to Ellen. "We have one choice. Stop the signal or let it finish." Ellen looked torn. "If we stop it, the silence continues. The stars stay dead." Reed's voice was firm. "And if we let it go?" Jonas answered softly. "Then everything, maybe even us, becomes part of the choir." Ellen stepped closer to the console. Her hands glowed brighter now, pulsing with the same rhythm as the signal. "I think I can control it," she whispered. Reed shook his head. "Ellen, you don't know what it'll do to you." She smiled sadly. "Maybe it already has." She placed both hands on the terminal. The screen blazed white. Jonas shouted, "The countdown stopped at 99%. Ellen's voice echoed, layered like two voices speaking at once. "If I stop the signal, the choir dies with me. If I let it go, humanity becomes something new." Reed grabbed her shoulders. "Ellen, please, you don't have to." She looked at him, her eyes shining like twin stars. "I already am part of it." And then she pressed the final key. Light exploded through the base, rising into the sky like a pillar of fire. Every satellite in orbit blinked alive. Every dead star flickered once, then began to glow again. Reed shielded his eyes, shouting her name. "Ellen!" But when the light faded, she was gone. Only her voice remained, faint and distant, echoing through the comms. "When you hear the stars sing again, remember us." Reed fell to his knees, staring at the glowing sky above. Jonas whispered, "Did she save us?" Reed didn't answer. He looked up and saw the stars forming new constellations. Not random. Patterns, almost like words. Phase 1, complete. Phase 2, initiated. The choir's song returned, and this time Earth was singing with it. The world did not end that night. It changed. Across the planet, cities woke to strange lights in the sky. They weren't meteors or auroras, they were patterns. Spirals of fire, glowing lines, and soft pulses of blue and gold dancing across the heavens like waves. For the first time in years, the stars were not silent. They were singing, and humanity. Every device, every radio, every quiet thought could hear the faint whisper of the song. A melody both sad and beautiful. On the ruined island of Site 17, only 2 people remained. Captain Reed, Halden and Jonas stood among the ashes of the base. The ground still shimmered faintly where Ellen had stood before vanishing into light. Jonas broke the silence. "Do you think she's still alive?" Reed stared at the horizon, where the ocean met the glowing sky. "I don't know. Maybe not in the way we understand life." He touched the old communicator on his wrist. The signal light blinked softly, steady, rhythmic, not random. Each blink followed the same beat as the song in the stars. Jonas whispered, "She's still out there, isn't she?" Reed nodded slowly. "She is the signal now." In the following days, strange things began happening on Earth. Plants grew faster. The oceans glowed at night. People who listened closely claimed they could hear words hidden in the star song. Words in every language, spoken at once. Governments tried to block the transmissions. They shut down satellites, burned towers, cut power grids. But the song continued, carried not by machines, but by thought itself. Humanity had become part of the frequency. One night, as Reed and Jonas repaired a damaged communication tower, a soft voice echoed through their radio, faint but clear. "Reed, can you hear me?" Reed froze. "Ellen?" "Yes." Her voice sounded calm, peaceful, like a breeze through glass. "I thought I was gone, but I'm not. The choir showed me everything. The stars weren't dead. They were waiting." Reed clenched the radio, his heart racing. What did they want from us? They wanted balance, harmony. They gave us light, but we turned it into noise. Now they've given us another chance to listen. Jonas stared up at the sky. "Ellen, what happens now?" For a long moment, there was only static. Then her voice returned, softer. "The song will grow. It will guide you, but it will also change you." Reed's voice trembled. "Change us into what?" "Into something that can hear the universe again." Over the next weeks, humanity began to transform. People started sharing thoughts without speaking. Dreams blended. Across the world, artists painted the same images, swirling lights and glowing constellations no telescope could explain. Scientists called it the starfall effect, but to others it was simply the return of the song. Reed kept listening to Ellen's voice through the static. Sometimes she spoke clearly. Sometimes it was just a whisper. But every time, the message was the same. Don't fear the silence. It was never the end. It was the breath before the next verse. One evening, Reed climbed the cliffs near the ocean. The sky above shimmered, thousands of glowing dots moving together like a giant map. He raised the communicator. "Ellen, if you can still hear me, did we do the right thing?" There was a pause. Then her voice, warm, steady, echoing like starlight, answered, "You gave them back their voice, Reed, and now they're giving us theirs." The stars flickered, rearranging themselves until a new constellation formed, a perfect spiral of light above the earth. Jonas joined him on the cliff, breathless. "It looks like a message." Reed nodded slowly. "Read it." Jonas squinted at the sky, tracing the glowing pattern. Then he whispered, "It says, 'Welcome back.'" At that moment, every city on Earth went silent. Every machine stopped. Every person looked up at the sky, and from the stars came a single pure note, so powerful and gentle that even the ocean stilled, a sound not of fear, but of peace. It felt like the universe was breathing again. Reed closed his eyes. He could almost see her, Ellen, standing among the stars, light flowing through her hair, smiling. The assembly was never lost, her voice said softly. We were just waiting for the world to listen. The next morning, the world was brighter. The stars no longer flickered. They burned strong, alive, and when people spoke, their voices carried a strange echo, the faint harmony of something vast and ancient moving through them. The choir was no longer just in the heavens. It was within humanity, and somewhere beyond the clouds, Ellen's final words whispered through the wind, words that no one forgot. The day humans abandoned the assembly was the day they forgot how to listen. The day the stars spoke again was the day we finally remembered. The screen fades to black. The faint hum of the choir continues, and in the distance, one last message appears. The great silence has ended. Phase 3. Incoming transmission.